I think it implants a lie in your head that business is too hard. I can't figure out my website, so business is too hard. I mean, there's so many fears around starting businesses. I know because I had them all.
Yeah.
Everything is possible. It takes steps, and it definitely takes finding people who know what they're doing and who can support you so that you can really focus on what brings you joy and what you really want to do.
I wanted to start today's podcast with that absolutely awesome quote from our guest, Brie Kistler. This is Melissa Klug. I am the Pro Organizer Studio podcast co-host, and I am absolutely thrilled to welcome our guest today, Brie Kistler. Brie used to work at Pro Organizer Studio. She is actually one of the reasons this podcast is in your headphones right now. She was with Jen at the inception of the podcast and really helped get it out into the world. So we thank her for that. And now she runs her very own company. She is an entrepreneur and runs BK Branding Co., which is a company that builds branding and websites for professional organizers, which is one of my favorite subjects to talk about. And whether you have been in business for 4 minutes or 4 years or 14 years, we have really good insights for you from Brie about how important it is for your website to attract local clients. I am very happy to have Brie on the podcast, and let's get going.
You're listening to the Pro Organizer Studio podcast with Melissa Klug and Jen Obermeyer. Thank you so much for joining in. Our mission is to broaden the horizons of savvy business women in the organizing industry by instilling confidence and inspiring authenticity. You'll gain new insight into strategies designed specifically for professional organizers. So now, let's get started.
We are back on the podcast with someone who is a great part of the Pro Organizer Studio family. Brie, how are you?
Hi, I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
So a lot of our listeners will know Brie for any interaction that you've had with Pro Organizer Studio. Brie was a huge part of the family, worked for Pro Organizer Studio for many years, but part of her journey, which is super, super fun. And it's one of those examples of you never know where your life is going to go. She actually ended up starting her very own company and becoming an entrepreneur in her own right. And we are going to talk to her today about all sorts of things, websites, branding, all sorts of things that are important to professional organizers. Brie, do you want to give us just a little synopsis of your story?
Absolutely. I actually started a business right around when I met Jen Obermeyer, and I was interested in professional organizing. So I've had a short, maybe a 1.5 year stint of that, but I was moving around a lot. And so I ended up really connecting with Jen and helping her as an operations manager for almost 3 years.
Yeah.
And got really plugged into the Inspired Organizer group and met a lot of amazing women there. And I realized while I was, coaching and helping these women that my favorite part of starting a business was the branding piece, like figuring out your colors and your why, your voice, your brand voice, and then your logos and your website and all that stuff. And I spent so much time DIYing everything just because I loved it so much. And then when we'd be in the group, people would ask questions about, feedback on my website, or can you help me with my logo? And that was like my favorite. I just love giving feedback and input on that. And I just found myself in my own free time helping people with logos and wanting to do that so bad. So as the operations manager, we had an opportunity to look for a web designer to refer our students to. And I swallowed my fear and asked Jen if I could partner with her and start my own business and do this. And then it just took off from there. So now I've been doing it for almost 2 years now. And it's just a huge passion and so much fun.
Well, and it started as, I don't always like using the word side hustle, but it did start as I'm going to do this on the side while I'm doing other things. And then It grew so much that you said, hey, this has to be my full-time job because it is taking all of my full time.
Yes, absolutely. It was perfect for where my family was at. I had a toddler at the time, and I really wanted to be able to be available to her and work from home and everything. So it just really worked out to be able to do this and to help women start their own dream and their own journey into entrepreneurship, which is just so exciting to be a part of.
It is super exciting. I always love, and I mean this genuinely, anytime someone writes in to the Pro Organizer Studio group or anybody DMs us on Instagram, I always say, I am so excited that you want to be a professional organizer. And I mean it so sincerely because it is such an amazing industry and we're able to help so many people. And there is something super rewarding about being able to help women start their own entrepreneurial journeys because there are so many opportunities out there right now.
Yes, yes. And so many ways to do it too. I mean, it's not just a, cookie cutter industry. Every person got to figure out some way to use their experiences to help others in this industry. So it's great.
Absolutely. Well, and I love, one of the things I love about your story is, and this is something I embrace too in the organizing world, leaving yourself open to opportunity. You never know what kind of awesome thing might come out. And sometimes just saying yes or taking a leap, or like you said, swallowing your fear, like no matter what that is, there are awesome things on the other side of that.
Yeah, agreed.
So one of the things that I am super passionate about, and you know this because we have talked about it privately before, but I am incredibly passionate about organizers and websites. And so since this is what you do, branding, websites, all of those things, I just think that it is so, so, so important for organizers to be able to connect with their clients through the computer. I know that you could talk about this for hours, but tell me a little bit about what you see in organizing and branding and websites in your business every day.
I think it's so important to not overdo it.
Yeah.
Less is more, and especially in your website. I think a lot of people can over explain and over brand and just try to overshare, and just really finding a balance of good design, but also concise and meaningful story to bring everything together and really create a place that is welcoming, but really your main focus is grabbing the attention of people who are overwhelmed and they want to see a very calm website, a very calm brand, a calm face, a welcoming, friendly face. So there's just it's a whole thing of finding that balance. And
let's talk a little bit about what you just said about sometimes our tendency is, and I know I had this too, and I still have it sometimes because I want to tell you all the things about why organizing is great and why I would love to work with you and all those kinds of things. But you said something really important, which is the clients that are reaching out to you are overwhelmed. They are scared in some cases, they are ashamed. And so finding a website that calms that and isn't overwhelming with information, even though there are 1,000 things we'd like to tell someone.
Yeah.
It not overwhelming to them. I think that's a really important point.
Yeah. I think your passion can lead you to be so excited to share like all your experiences and all the ways you can help people and everything. But if your purpose is to simplify someone's life and make space for peace in their life, and you need to have a website that communicates the same thing.
Yeah.
And you can get to know them later, but just that initial connection needs to get to the point and not be overwhelming.
The other thing, I keep a Post-it note on my laptop, and I've actually said this on the podcast before, but Jen one time, and it's very simple, but sometimes very hard. The note just says, focus on them, because she and I were talking one time, and just reminder that it's about focusing on the potential client and what you're going to bring them, and thinking about how they might feel when they're at the point where they've decided to reach out to someone, which may be the hardest step that they've ever taken. And giving them an experience that makes them feel good and makes them feel welcome right away.
Yes, for sure. I think there is a balance of sharing a little bit of who you are, or at least like your vibe or your background a little bit, so that the right people connect with you, and so that you are also being fulfilled in your business, but for sure, not oversharing.
How have you been able to see websites be able to connect with people? Because I know I've seen it in my own business. Like, it is shocking to me, the people that will say, oh, I felt like I knew you just because I read a little bit about your story. And I'm sure that you see that too. And I think that maybe people don't fully understand that. Like, how are you able to communicate what a person is like through a website in the work that you do?
I think if you think about the things in your life that are overwhelming, like if your target is busy, overwhelmed moms, and you're a busy, overwhelmed mom, there you have been there, and really spending some time brainstorming what are the feelings that I have or have had, what are my pain points, and then asking questions and speaking to those things in your website so that when someone visits your website, they immediately feel known or seen or understood. And quality over quantity with your web copy for sure. And thinking about their pain points, speaking to those, and then offering solutions instead of listing all your credentials and all the ways that you can help, all the reasons why you are so great. Instead of doing that, just talking about how you can really come alongside somebody and really be a support to them. I think it's so much more important. And then also, I really think testimonials on websites
they're
are
huge.
really important. I think they're so great because I always tell my clients, because so many people are like, oh, I want before and after photos. And I really think testimonials are better because they speak to the emotion, to the feelings, and people can read through them and find themselves in someone else's experience with you and get so much out of that. I think your client already knows what your messy house looks like. They don't need to see lots of messy and houses and tidy houses, and they can go to Instagram for that. But your website can really be a place where you make an impact in a really concise way.
I am obsessed with a good testimonial, and I completely agree with you. I actually was coaching someone yesterday that, hey, I know everybody thinks you have to have before and after pictures, but before and after pictures in general never give you the idea of what the experience is like. They don't convey the growth of the experience, and they often don't give you the visual wow that you're looking for, but a testimonial does. A testimonial accomplishes all those things. The client themselves is telling what their experience is.
Yeah, how it felt, and then the specific attributes of that organizer that really meant the most to them. And so then visitors to your website can see your character and how you work, how hard you work, how service oriented you are, or how good with kids you are, or whatever it is that's important to your client. They're going to write about that, and then other people will connect with that and really be attracted to you.
I have found too with testimonials in my own business that there were times that I was like, oh, I don't really want to bother people and ask them. I don't want to bug them, but people who are happy with your service are extremely happy to write you a nice review and a nice testimonial. And I found is people sometimes tell you things about the process in that testimonial that you didn't even know that they experienced. So it's actually
yes,
like a learning experience.
They are the best to read. I totally agree. And I see patterns for sure, which is really affirming that, like, oh, it's not just one person who thinks this about me. Like, okay, this is quality, a quality trait that I have that continues. But then there are different things that people say that I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know you were thinking that, or I didn't know you had as good of an experience as you did. Some people are more reserved during the process, and then I'm not sure. And then they're so excited in their review. So, I agree with you.
And I think that being able to capture those and really give those, picking the absolute best testimonial and putting that on your homepage, that may be the thing that sells someone. And it's not a before and after picture. It's that story that people tell and the story that you tell through your website. I know that you're super passionate about branding and making sure that you have cohesive branding. And that's something I will say I've not been the best at in my own personal business. I'm just going to be honest. I'm kind of all over the place, but I am very much understanding now how important that is. So can you talk to me a little bit about branding and how organizers go about that?
Yeah. Oh, I think I understand what you're saying, but speak to what you said. I think you have a brand. You have very humorous, real, funny, great brand.
I try to be a little,
I love that.
I'm not your traditional Instagram.
I think you're very authentic. I mean, it might not all be the same color, but that's okay if you're being yourself.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to reform, Brie. I'm trying.
I think it's definitely a balance of your visual branding, but also your brand voice and your copywriting and SEO. I mean, so much of it is so important, but I just love visual branding. I think like interior design is something that I wish I would have studied. And branding kind of fits in with that. Just getting colors and textures and images and getting everything meld together and beautifully and make sense. And like you said, be cohesive. That's just something that comes naturally to me and I love it. And so with organizing, I just think that it's important because in a way it is kind of like interior design and people want their house to be beautiful and welcoming and calming and a sanctuary. And so if you think about that, then it would make sense for your organizing business to have that same visual impact. And when you're getting your business started and building everything out, I think it is important to put some time and emphasis into figuring out what your color palette is and what your fonts are and making sure that everything makes sense together. But if you're going to have a presence on social media, that things are complementing each other and that everything you post kind of has the same thread in and throughout it. And the reason it's important is, yes, for one, you are showing your audience your style or the quality of your service, the quality of your business, that you're very professional, but also it helps your audience to get to know you and trust you and see like, oh, if they see a random post, they'll automatically know that it's you. It keeps you in their mind. It's funny because it's like, oh, it's just colors and fonts, but it's more than that because it has an emotional impact on people. And if they think it's beautiful and they like it, then they're going to start recognizing your style, your posts and everything, and your website and even your business cards and other print materials and everything. Like people will start to recognize, oh, that is such and such. That's, so-and-so. And then they'll think of you more often when they're talking to their friends or whatever, because that is something that's appealing and aesthetically pleasing to them.
And I think too, with branding, it's important, and you can tell me from your experience, but one of the things that I see sometimes with branding too is, while they need to be for your palette in particular, it needs to be something that resonates with you because it is your brand, but it also thinking again about what is the client experience. Like I saw a website once where it was very clear that the person's favorite color was bright purple, and that is totally fine. But like accents a bright purple versus it was a very jarring visual experience. And this is not a commentary on anybody's color choices, but just thinking about when you're building that brand, what would best connect with a potential organizing client? And
yes,
what is that
absolutely.
that?
Absolutely. Like you don't want chartreuse to be like
right
everywhere. I mean, yeah. And like with purple, I mean, if you kind of think of it, like if you're decorating your house, you're not going to paint every wall bright purple. You're not going to have every couch or every piece of furniture purple. Like you want to have a lot of neutral and then have accents of the color. But I also do think it's important that, okay, if you like purple, great. Let's use like lavender or like an eggplant or something that's very calming and not so electric, because that's not the point of your business. Your business is not to energize people. Like it's not a gym,
right
you're trying to calm the chaos in their house. So it doesn't have to be pastel. It really doesn't. I've done lots of different websites with brighter colors, but yeah, definitely being careful about the color palettes you use. And it's, if you are DIY, it helps to just go on Pinterest and look up palettes and see what looks a little more soothing.
Just scroll through, whether it's Pinterest, Canva, anything, you can get so many great branding ideas from that and say like, hey, this is a color story that really speaks to me. The other thing I'll say about branding, keeping branding consistent, it makes your decision-making easier. Because you don't have to say like, oh my gosh, there are 72 trillion colors out there I can pick. What am I going to pick for my Instagram post today? You just go like, no, I've got 4 colors. And here's
and if you have the Canva account, like the paid Canva account, then you can set up your brand colors and they're always there. You don't just type in the code every time. Like it's always there.
Like a box.
Yep. And same with your fonts. You can just save it all there, and it makes it so much easier. And you can have, templates that you use, and you can definitely cut out a lot of decision fatigue and a lot of time just by setting those things up.
One of the things that you and I have talked about before is, and I will say at the beginning of my business, I was definitely full DIY. I was like, nope, I can do this myself. And I honestly this is going to sound silly. I didn't really fully understand there were people out there that could help with anything. And so I do understand sometimes there is the DIY moment, but one of the things that I wish I would have gotten much earlier in my organizing business was there are people that can help with things, and it is an investment in your business that is going to save you sometimes literally hundreds of hours of your time and a lot of wasted time of not being able to go out and get clients because you are figuring out how to use Squarespace. If someone is hesitant, like, oh, I don't know that I want to spend money on branding or a website, like give us a little bit about your experience with that.
Yes. I mean, I was definitely the DIY bargain shopper girl and had a lot of fear and low confidence, lack of confidence about money, and just scared to spend money, scarcity, just afraid that anything I spend or do, it's not going to come back to me. And I came into I got to know Pro Organizer Studio when I was feeling that way. So I started, my professional organizing business, DIYing absolutely everything. And it's fine, but it takes a lot of time, and it's frustrating to a lot of people because you're having to learn new programs, and a lot of the times figuring out your colors and figuring out your branding, it doesn't come naturally to you, but you feel like you have to do it yourself because it's expensive. But as I have, grown in my business and spent more time figuring out what really makes sense to me and what I enjoy doing, and also just putting action into working with my clients, it really does help you build confidence around what your strong suits are. And you start to realize that you can let go of some of those extras that are just taking up your time and frustrating you. And so website is one of those things, because when you're getting started with your business, you have positive, excited, creative energy toward it. It can really suck you dry to spend weeks, months, a year. Some people just cannot get past the branding side of things. And then they're like, well, it has to look a certain way, or I have to have the right name, or I have to have the right color, I have to have the right photos, I have to have it perfect. And then they're spending so much time focusing on that, and they're losing that drive, that passion to actually do the thing that they're wanting to do, the organizing, the connecting with people and making an impact in people's lives. So I think it's a huge thing to let go of some of the things that you aren't as good at early on, and do it and just let someone help you get it done quickly so that you can actually dive into what you're actually passionate about and start helping people.
I want to go back, because I think one of the things you just said is total hard stop brilliant, which is there are parts of building a business that if you let it discourage you, it will stop all of your forward progress. Yes. And if you are struggling you don't enjoy learning Squarespace, and you don't know how to do it, and you don't know how to do branding, it can stop you from actually getting started on your business journey, and letting that prevent you versus finding someone to help you with it. That was an awesome thing.
Thank you. Yeah, I think really great. I think it implants a lie in your head that business is too hard. I can't figure out my website, so business is too hard. There's so many fears around starting businesses. I know, because I had them all. Yeah. Especially when you're a mom and you have all these things you have to think about, and you're scared about setting things up legally and setting things up digitally and all these things. But everything is possible. It just, you can't try to do it all. You can't try to do it all at the same time. And it takes steps, and it definitely takes finding people who know what they're doing and who can support you so that you can really focus on what brings you joy and what you really want to do. I pick Squarespace because it's easy for you to maintain afterwards. Yes. But if you can't figure it out on your own, there's nothing wrong with that. It's a website. You're not a web designer, or you're an organizer. So
I always say, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something. You can do all these things. You can build a website yourself, even if you've never done it. That doesn't mean it's the right choice for you, or it's the right way to spend your time, or if it is going to take you 100 hours. Think about, legitimately, and it could take you 100 hours because you have no idea what you're doing, and you're searching for the perfect picture, and you're trying to pick the perfect font. And you can get into analysis paralysis very easily, because there are literally thousands of fonts and pictures and everything. And so if you're going to spend
that's 100 coffee dates with power partners and friends to talk about your business.
Let's just say it's going to take you 100 hours to build your website. And if you're going to charge clients $100 an hour for your time, you can do some simple math and say, oh, it cost me $10,000 to build this website. What would it have cost to hire someone? A fraction of that.
A fraction of that.
And I also think this is something that I struggled with too, is I made assumptions about how much something was going to cost without ever doing the research. And so you might think, oh, it's going to cost me so much money to build a website, I can't afford it. It's not a at a huge, huge expense, and it's deductible for your business, and
Yeah.
it will get you into the market faster so that you can get clients and have them pay you. The ROI is outrageous.
Yes, totally. Yes. And more beautiful, if I may say so myself.
Absolutely.
I mean, DIY websites are great, but like I also do some audits for people, and there's little things you can tweak that really make a big difference. And so if you just have someone do it for you, like you can just skip over that and just
That's
quickly
right.
move on to the next thing.
Well, and I think especially when we're talking about who is your ideal client, a website needs to talk to that potential client. So if you are focusing on really a high-end luxury client, your website needs to convey that feeling.
Yes,
If you are
absolutely.
focusing on a busy, overwhelmed mom who steps on Legos 400 times a day, your website needs to convey the message to that person directly, and
Mhm.
having a professional give you that. Well, one of the things I love everything you're saying about, I mean, less is more. I have a thing on my shelf that says less is more because I have to remind myself about that sometimes, but it's so important in organizers' websites. And one of the things that was just so shocking to me when I first started my business is, and I know that the statistics change all the time, but you have less than 30 seconds and sometimes less than 10 seconds to grab someone's attention enough to stay on your website. And
Mm.
so one of the things that I see sometimes, there are 12 tabs at the top and that you have to click to find everything, right? And I go, an overwhelmed person's attention span is going to be very short. And so you have to
Mhm.
hook them in immediately, and they may only ever see your homepage. They may scroll your
Yep.
homepage and that's it. And they never click on all the glorious things that you have created in those other
Yeah.
tabs. And I'm sure they're amazing things, but they're not going to get there. And so one of the things about working with an expert, an experienced person like you is, you know what it's going to take to grab someone's attention and create that story and create that connection with you, that personal connection of, I'm hiring you to work in my personal spaces.
Definitely keeping things simple. The KISS method is definitely important here. I
Yeah.
think, and yeah, a lot of my websites, the navigation bar at the top, it looks really the same. There's the same like 4 to 6 pages, but it's what they need to see. Like you could have tons of resources and videos and lists of donation sites. Most people will ask you for that. They're not, and your clients aren't going to keep going on your website. Like they go
Yes.
on your website to hire you, and then you can give them resources separately. And that's just my opinion, but
Yeah.
I think it's important to sort of, your website is to get them from meeting you to hiring you. And so a lot of times it's really the homepage, about page services. Like I do it in order. It's like, I want you to see the homepage, have access to all of my pages. The homepage is like the intro and the hub, of the rest of the site. And then you have the about page because you want them to learn more about you. Services is about your services, and rates. Rates is important to have on your website. Maybe some testimonials and then a contact page. I mean, it's very simple. It doesn't have to be
Yes.
overdone, but the point is it's a journey. Either you're bringing them on a journey through your website, and yeah, you definitely don't want to over complicate that journey.
When people work with you, they have some homework, they have some questionnaires, but then you distill those down. And I think that distilling down process is, we're not good at editing ourselves, right? But you need someone from the outside to say, I promise you, this may feel uncomfortable, but this is the right way to go, because
Yes.
we know, we have seen before what works and what doesn't work, and letting go a little bit of that control and saying, I trust someone who has expertise in this, and I'm going to let go of that control. Super, super important.
Yes, yes. And like I said, I mean, I work on with my clients, and sometimes they help me edit things when I get too
Sure.
excited.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely agree. Sometimes I'm just like, you're just going to have to trust me
Yeah,
on
I
this. Like
swear.
you wait till you see it. Trust the process.
Absolutely. Can we talk a little bit about, one of the other things that I am super passionate about teaching organizers is the importance. So it's not just having a website, super, super important, but also making sure you have the right keywords on there, making sure. The whole point of Google existing is, we've got Jane who needs organizing services and Susan that provides them. And we've got to put those two people together out of the huge world of the internet. And one of the ways we do that is by SEO and keywords and all of those things.
Yes, yes. I have a wonderful SEO expert partner with me, and she actually a professor in SEO
Oh, wow.
in Pennsylvania. So I definitely love having her in my back pocket. Like Google's very picky.
It is.
Google,
Yeah. You can't,
Google
it's very finicky.
Google doesn't want you to overdo it. But so again, less is more. But finding the right places to add those keywords is really important, especially because most professional organizing businesses are local businesses. And so when your emphasis is on finding your clients locally, it's really important to make sure that Google knows where you are so that you can start ranking higher in Google on Google search. And SEO is definitely a process. I mean, it takes time. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. Like building a website can happen really quickly, but building your presence online is definitely takes months.
This is a super, super great point, because one of the things that I see sometimes, unfortunately, I have to hurt people's feelings sometimes and say, you launched your website last week. Yes, you're not at the top of the Google search results.
Yeah.
It takes time.
Yeah.
And so, and that's the thing is, like, I think we have this idea that you just put a website out there and magically
Oh.
are going to find you. And it takes, listen, Google's crawling billions of websites. And so it takes a while for Google to recognize your website is out there, to know what you do, to be able to do that matching process. And so
Yeah.
the more time that you take struggling with perfectionitis or any of those other things, and
Yeah,
not,
you're delaying that. You're
yeah,
delaying that process of Google doing its job.
exactly.
Absolutely.
You're not going to be able to find those ideal clients because they haven't had time to be able to find you on the internet. So it's just another example of, you might be losing thousands of dollars because you're delaying this process.
Yep. I agree.
But another thing too, even if you're not an SEO expert, one of the things that we talk about a lot is just make sure that you're using, to Brie's point, less is more, using very plain language to talk about what you do also. So there are experiences we provide to clients which can't be articulated easily, but at the core of it, we need to connect with people on Google. And by doing that, we need to use the words they would use to search for your services.
Yes.
So,
You're not a poet. You're not a poet.
correct.
You are trying to get people to find you. And so if they're going to type in something, I don't know, like overwhelming sanctuary, I don't know. They're going to search, declutter my closet. So right. Or
curating a sanctuary is probably not going to be the Google search, but organizing my crap might be the search, right?
Yes. So that means that you have to actually speak that way. I mean, there's a balance of speaking in your brand voice, but also using the terminology that is going to help people find you.
Jen and I have a business coach who, the one thing that I will always take from her is use second grade language. That's her sentence. She uses a lot. She'll be on a coaching call with someone who's like trying to build something, and they're like, well, I do blah, blah, blah. And she's like, that's not second grade language. And I love it when she says that, because it's just a reminder of like, okay, yeah, I'm using words that maybe my potential clients wouldn't hear. So
yeah. And a good way to kind of figure that out, like, speaking of how to explain what you do, the Don Miller's Story Brand teaches that, like figuring out what your one liner is. I'm just talking about how, like, solution you solve for whatever person's problem. I don't know.
I would totally recommend. I'm obsessed with Story Brand. So Donald Miller is a marketing expert and business builder and all sorts of other things. And he has a book called Story Brand that even if you're not quite ready to start a website building journey, or you're just thinking about a business, or frankly, even if you've been in business for 5 years or 10 years, I think it's an incredibly valuable book, and it's a good exercise to go through. He will walk you through in this book, how do you think about your business? How do you talk about your business? And it would be a great step to take, to read that and do that work, and then engage.
I agree. I think it's a great, like, if clients read it before they fill out my questionnaires for copywriting, that helps so much, because then they kind of have a better understanding, like, why they're doing what they're doing and what the problems their clients are facing, and then they can kind of say that more concisely. So
it's an absolutely great book, and I totally recommend it. So one of the things that I think a lot of organizers believe is that social media, like, that's how they're going to find all of their clients. And I know you and I definitely align on that is a nice to have, but your website is what really gets people.
I do think it's important to make sure that your website is your first priority. So many people jump on Instagram like, oh, this is where all the pretty pictures are. This must be how I get business. But it's important to kind of step back and think about what your priorities are in your business. If you really do want to sell products through your affiliate, to write blog posts, to be an influencer in the industry, that's one thing. And you can really start building up your community on social media for that reason. But if you really do want to focus on local business and being in people's underwear drawers, then you need to focus on making sure that your website reaches them. And social media, it's so popular. And so there's a lot of pressure to be on it, even if it's something that you're putting on yourself, that pressure. But I think it's really important to kind of figure out, like I said, what your purpose of your business is, but also what brings you joy and how your personality is going to play out in your business, because you don't want to be someone else. You don't want to copy what someone else is doing because they're successful. That's not the recipe for success. I think that successful people do what brings them joy, and then their audience feeds on that and are attracted to that, and they want to connect with you because you are being true to yourself. And then success comes from that. I'm not saying that it's magic or it'll happen overnight, but I think it's important to make sure that you're connecting with the right people.
Yeah. And where your ideal client is hanging out. And I love your point about if your goal for your business is to be, if you are selling a course, if you're selling an online program, if you are selling products, if you want to be an influencer, all of those are great points. So your client then is hanging out on Instagram. And so Instagram will become a very important part of your business. But if you want to organize in someone's closet in Dallas, Texas, the way to find those people is to create your brand and to create your website and get your Google My Business going and get that piece developed. And then there's a phrase that our inspired organizer friend, Kate Jones, uses, which is social then becomes proof of life. So your social media account,
exactly.
It's it is proof that you are out there. And I'm not saying don't build it, but concentrating only on social media and then forgetting about this other piece if you are building a local business.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you can spend so much time like trying to post every day and trying to say something meaningful. And if it doesn't come natural to you, then you're wasting a lot of time, because if what comes natural to you is connecting with your clients one-on-one and not so much being a face on Instagram, then you need to focus on that. You need to focus on what feels authentic to you. And you can post occasionally. You can post a couple times a week and just show that your business is alive and growing. And you can also outsource those things. I think that's so important. Like, you don't have to do it all yourself. You can figure out your style and what looks good to you and what feels like your brand. And then you can hire a copywriter to write your captions. You can hire a designer to create your posts and all this stuff. Like it's all doable. It's all doable so that you can feel relevant, but really focus on your strengths.
Tell me a little bit about the process of building a website. So if someone is saying like, well, I don't really know what I want to do, but I don't know how I would convey all of this to you. What is the process of building a website with you?
Well, when I first started, I think I did like what most designers do. And I did this traditional process of working with client for 4 to 6 weeks. It was this long drawn out thing. And they would have these questionnaires and this homework to do. And then we would slowly work through the project. I realized that I had a lot of people wanting my help, which is a huge blessing. But I needed to help more people in less time. And both for me and for my personal needs, but also so that you guys can really get started quickly. I adopted this whole day rate model and I started working with clients by the day. And I'm able to now focus on one person at a time. And we get on Facebook Messenger and we chat back and forth and they see the progress and everything. But to answer your question, getting started, there is homework that needs to be done. Sometimes it's really overwhelming for people, but you can take as much time as you need before we actually do the work. And there are some questionnaires, and I ask people to make a Pinterest board for me to show me like their style, their colors that they like, their fonts that they like, logos, business cards, interior design photos, and organized space photos, just for me to see their style, their vision, what kind of spaces they think they want to create or what they want their business to exude that vibe. And that helps me a lot. That's probably the most important thing for me to catch hold of their vision. But the process itself really, well, obviously I do it all the time. And so for me, it's like no big deal. I think people tend to get a little overwhelmed, and then I'm like, it's okay. Like, it's okay.
Got it.
You need to trust the process. Like, just do the homework. And I know what you need. It's a lot of building and then a lot of editing, a lot of less is more. And that includes all the content people upload for me in our shared files for me to use. I'm very picky about what I use. And the same if you hire one of our copywriters, then they're probably not going to, it's going to be simple. It's going to be not so wordy, or sometimes the questionnaires are so full, and it's helpful for sure. But we definitely break things down into very simple, minimal websites. My websites are definitely very minimal, beautiful, but not overwhelming and layered. And that's something that I've struggled with a little bit. I think I've felt like, oh, I'm not good enough because it doesn't look like a super, like a creative business website. But that's the thing. It's not a creative business website. It doesn't need lots of layers. I'm not working with artists. I'm working with organizers, and it needs to be very calming, very minimal. And also the flow of the website is important too. So your visitor can find the information they need quickly, and so that your conversion rate will be as high as possible.
We have covered so many things today. I could talk to you about that. I'm not joking. I could take your entire day to talk about this, but I know that you're very busy, and I know you have other things to do besides talking to me. Thank you. Oh my gosh. Thank you for joining us. And I'm sure this felt like a little bit of a throwback, because Brie worked on the podcast you were like there when it first started.
I birthed the podcast.
You are the reason. I mean, honestly,
it's my baby.
That's right. People should thank you, because people say all the time, oh my gosh, I love the podcast. And I'm like, really, Brie was at the inception. So we should thank her for putting this out.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so glad it's been so encouraging to so many people.
Yeah, it was an awesome thing that Jen decided to start, and you made it happen, and it's awesome. So can you tell people how they can work with you and how they can find you?
Yes.
If you tell me you don't have a website, we're going to have a problem. Just kidding.
No, I definitely do. My website is BK Branding Co. That's the name of my business. And you can also find me on Instagram at BK Branding Co.
I definitely encourage you to check out all of Brie's, all the different places that Brie lands, because it really gives you an idea of what the aesthetic that she brings to your organizing business. And we only recommend people that we truly, truly believe in their services. And I have seen many of Brie's websites. So many people in our Inspired Organizer program use Brie, and so their websites are absolutely gorgeous, and she knows exactly what the clients are looking for. So totally recommend her.
Thank you so much. This was so fun.
Thank you so much for listening in to the Pro Organizer Studio podcast. If you'd like to get our roadmap for success as a pro organizer, head straight to www.proroadmap.com.